Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the TT Time with Dr. Tarver is a wellness-based podcast. It is not intended to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health provider. Welcome back. I know that I got a little long-winded last week when I was talking about sleep, probably because I had not had a good night of sleep before that episode. Got a little dehydrated, started coughing, had to edit the episode. So this time we're going to do a better job of being a good steward of my time. I think I ran almost 50 minutes last week, so I tightened up this week. So I talked to you all last week about that we are in this series in this new year of trying to understand what causes us to not be able to meet our goals, that we end up doing the same types of behaviors over and over again. We find ourselves having the same conversations yearly or more frequently than not, about how I said I wasn't going to be in this place next year. And then I find myself in this place. And so we're talking about strategies to save us from sabotage. And before we get into like, hey, what does a goal look like, and how do I make sure that it's specific and measurable, and I've got accountability that's realistic, and I have a timeline. First, I need to understand what some barriers are to me being able to reach goals. And so we talked the last week about sleep, which is a superpower, but what happens when we don't get enough sleep and how that can be a barrier to us being successful. And so today I actually had a really good conversation on Saturday with some ladies, and we were just talking about a variety of different things. Just how values are changing and how goals are changing and what's important to people looks different now, and what held value previously doesn't necessarily hold the same value. For example, church doesn't necessarily hold the same value to people anymore. Marriage doesn't necessarily hold the same value to people anymore. Home ownership doesn't necessarily have the same value that it used to have, right? So the things that we may have used to define us, being able to stay on one job for 20, 30 years, doesn't have the same value it used to. And so, as we're in this shifting era of trying to figure out, like, what are the values I want to keep, what are the things that are important to me, and by virtue of that, what are the things that interfere with me being able to have those things that are important to me? We were talking about for young adults that sometimes they have challenges being told what to do. They just do not like for people to tell them what to do. However, that's not just limited to young adults. There are a lot of us that struggle with people telling us what to do. And the interesting piece is, people will say, well, if you're an entrepreneur, then you don't have to have people tell you what to do. That simply isn't true. As an entrepreneur, people tell me what to do all the time. One of them is the IRS. The IRS tells me what to do not only monthly, but also quarterly when I pay my estimated taxes for the upcoming year. Because if I don't pay my taxes, then I'm going to have some negative consequences. That could mean I could owe a lot of money when it is time for me to do my tax returns, which is why a lot of people don't end up doing their tax returns, because they didn't withhold the taxes and they know they now have to pay and don't have the money to be able to pay. Right? And at the time, I made that decision because I needed extra income to be able to get through the month. And I thought to myself, hey, I'll be able to put that money up. I'll be able to get it saved before it's time for me to pay. And we don't, because we didn't have a plan that was sustainable to be able to do that. But also, every time you get in a car and you drive, that's somebody telling you what to do. They're telling you that you have to have a license to operate a motor vehicle. They're telling you that you have to abide by the speed limit, though some of you take that as a suggestion. Um, and they are also letting you know that if you don't do these things, then you have the potential to get a citation or to be arrested. And so there will always be people telling us what to do. Our doctors, who want wellness for us, they tell us what to do. If you are a member of an organization, you have rules and guidelines. They tell you what to do. But why do we struggle so much with people telling us what to do. Why, when our partners tell us what to do, does it strike a nerve? And even if what they're telling us is not anything that's threatening, and maybe them holding us accountable to something that we said we wanted, what is it about them telling us? So you say, hey, I have a goal of I want to lose weight, and so I'm not going to be eating after 6 p.m. It is 7:30. I go to get a snack, and my partner says, hey, remember you said you weren't going to be eating after 6 o'clock, so you need to put that snack down. And instantly, what happens? I think you can't tell me what to do. If I want a snack, I can get a snack. I'm a grown woman, right? Or we have conversations with our children. Some of you have adult children who are living with you in their 20s, trying to figure stuff out and learning how to launch. And so you say to them, hey, when you get paid, do not blow your money. You have things that you need to take care of, that you need to prioritize. They stay gone, come back. You already know that they've spent that money. They've hung out with the homies. They don't have it. You say to them, look, I told you you had bills to pay for. Why did you go and blow this money? You proceed to give them a lecture. What do they do? Sit there and look at you with the looks on their faces that I know irritates a lot of your souls, with their mouths open and their heads tilted, kind of like puppies do, and you are just aggravated because you know it's going in one ear and out another. And even if they don't say anything to you, you feel them saying, like, I'm not a little kid anymore, I'm an adult. Or you um, can say all you want, but you're not going to be able to make me do anything I don't want to do. All right. And even on our jobs, we show up late. I get tickled because we get mad when people remind us of what our obligations are that we committed to when we started working, one of which is to be on time. That we're late, and we get upset with people when they remind us that we're late and that we have consequences for being late, and we get a whole attitude, even though we know we are late. So, what is it about people telling us what to do that we have such a strong visceral reaction to? I think for a lot of us, it reminds us of childhood. One of the things that happens in childhood, you have probably said it at some point along your journey to adulthood, that you could not wait until you were an adult so that you could make your own decisions, be able to do what you wanted to do, when you wanted to do it, how you wanted to do it. And there is something about people telling us what to do that sends us back into childhood. We feel like people are saying that we're a kid, that we're not capable of making good decisions. In some ways, I think we feel as if people are questioning our intellect, or questioning our abilities, or that essentially they're making a jab, some kind of snide comment about our ability to follow through with things. Now, mind you, the people have not said any of this. They have simply reminded us of either our commitment or goals that we have made. So they're really just restating what we have already stated or agreed to. But when they say it, it feels like a personal attack. It feels like we're being criticized. It feels like we're being put down. It feels like we're being belittled or demeaned. Then we think to ourselves, if I allow you to keep telling me what to do, you're going to keep doing it. It's going to become a pattern. I give you an inch, you're going to take a mile. Then you're going to have commentary on everything I do. Think that you'll be able to tell me every time. You all have been in the car before. Somebody told you you were going the wrong way. You, in fact, knew you were going the wrong way. But because they told you you were going the wrong way, you proceeded to carry on. Now you all lost. Took you 30 minutes outside of where you were going to end up there. But it is that I do not want to give in to you saying that I was wrong. It is that I don't want you to think you have some level of power over me, that I'm inferior to you in some way. It could be absolutely ego, where we think to ourselves, like, you're not going to be in this relationship with me, be in this work environment with me, be in this organization with me, and feel like I'm inferior to you, or feel like you know more than I do, or feel like you'll be able to boss me around. And we, again, want to be able to make our own decisions. We see this a lot with our aging communities. And so as we age and we do lose autonomy, right? That ability to make those decisions and operate how you want to, because there may be some changes. There could be some changes in our physical health that doesn't allow us to have as much mobility, which affects our autonomy. It might be that there's some cognitive decline. You talk about what is difficult is to get someone to surrender those keys, even though they have had 5 accidents, hit the mailbox, tore up the curb, uh, ran through the garage door, been stopped by the police and brought home, been told by their primary care physician that their license is revoked and they no longer need to be driving. But it is something about surrendering that feels as if I if I surrender in this moment, I will be forever lost. I will never be respected again, and I will not be able to get this autonomy back. And there is some truth to that in some cases. Once you surrender those keys are surrendered. You will not be able to drive again. I don't know anybody that's 95 years old that has been told that they're unable to drive, that has been able to come back later and say, "I mastered it yet again. My vision has changed. My reflexes have gotten sharp again, and I'm ready to drive." Sometimes when we let things go, it is because we have to let them go. There's grief in that, which can be very hard for us. Sometimes we're grieving the loss of things. So when people tell us what to do, it reminds us of the inability to do something that we were previously able to do. And that's hard. It's hard to accept that things change, that we change. Um, it is absolutely difficult to acknowledge that I might not be that great at something. I'm having these problems financially because I don't manage money well. It can be very hard for us to admit that we don't manage money well, because then that means someone would have to come in and assist us, and we don't want people to have that level of control over us. And I don't want to be able to have to ask for permission to be able to do something. Sometimes we just don't want to conform to the rules and the guidelines. We had so many debates during COVID about these masks, and people were absolutely resolute. I'm not going to wear a mask. And it was simply because they were told that it would be in their best interest to wear a mask. I don't want to be a sheep. Y'all just listen to everything. And the truth is, we listen to everything too when it benefits us and it's something that we want to do. But once we kind of dig in and the 2-year-old part of us comes out that's like, no, and we're throwing that temper tantrum. And a lot of times we don't even know what we're fighting about. We just want to fight because it is that somebody told us that we couldn't do it. And so I want to be different. I don't want to be like everyone else. And I'm going to be the one that stands out, and you all are going to see. And I think sometimes we want to be right. Um, and we value being right. I've talked about this a good bit over even having relationships with people, and sometimes over our safety. And particularly when we feel as if we've been disrespected in some way, like someone telling us something is disrespectful to us, and typically it's because it hits at a wound that we have. Like, I know I'm overweight. I don't have to have the doctor remind me every time I come in for a visit. I was 100 pounds overweight last time I came in. I'm still that same weight, so I'm still 100 pounds. You know, and I know, so we don't have to keep harping on it, right? Because I have some shame about it, that I am struggling to be able to lose this weight. I think sometimes we think that, again, we can master something. I can do it. I can figure it out. And then when we can't, it is hard to be able to acknowledge, I don't know how to do that. I'm not able to make this change, because at some point in my life I was. And I think a lot of times, because we're still processing and understanding ourselves, what some of our battles are and our challenges are at that change as we get older, it can be difficult to acknowledge that to ourselves, to accept that ourselves, much less be able to admit that to someone else. I do want you all to know that a lot of people feel the very same way. This is often why we can't reach our goals, or we do reach them, but we're not able to maintain them. I think that anytime we feel like someone is restricting us, there is that kind of inner rebel that comes out. You remember your teenage years where you did exactly what they told you not to do. They said, you don't need to date that person. They are not in a healthy position in their lives right now. They've been abusive to their past partners. Their home life is full of turmoil and conflict, and you don't want to invite that into your space. And you say, "No, I love them," and so you're going to continue to date them anyway. And this happens oftentimes when we create things like a budget, or we create a eating plan, or we create an exercise plan, or we create a plan to be able to start a business, or we create a plan to be able to grow and advance in a career path. As soon as someone tells us the requirement for us doing those things that we outline, then we're like, I'm not going to do that. So even though I'm struggling financially, I'm going to go shop. Even though me drinking excessively has had a negative impact on my health, I'm going to drink. Even though I know that this person has been abusive to me in this relationship, I'm going to go back to them. There is actually a term for that. When we do the opposite of the thing that we know is healthy for us, it's called psychological reactance. Yep. What is that about? It is about that we perceive things to be a threat to our freedom. So when someone is telling me that I have to do something, or I feel as if they're saying I don't have a choice in doing it, then what my brain tells me to do is, nah, do the thing that they're telling you not to do. You say stop smoking? Oh, let me puff puff pass. You say don't eat salt? Let me go ahead and eat before I come home, and then I'll eat the bland stuff that you have there as well, because I got a chance to get out there and get that good old fried chicken, or those delicious fries, or have those chips, or get that hoagie that Cliff Huxtable used to talk about in the Cosby Show, right? So when we think, I'll show you, it not only affects how we're thinking, but it affects how we feel too. It happens in this space in our bodies that leads to this anger and this hostility and aggression, right? That's why you dig in with it. That's why, even though you know you're going the wrong way, you will not acknowledge it. Even though you know you're lost, you will not acknowledge it. Even though you know you're overwhelmed, you won't ask for help. Even though you know you don't have any money in your account, you're going to put it on credit. And when we are in that place of rebelling, then that's when we often have what we call a direct restoration, right? So, what does that mean? I'm doing it on purpose, the opposite of what you're telling me to do, right? So, why is it direct restoration? Because it restores my freedom, it restores my independence, it restores my ego, it restores my autonomy. So, in our minds, we think, ha, I got you. You can't deny me, right? Like somebody will tell you, hey, put on a seatbelt. You all know the cars are beep, 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 beep. You don't put on the seatbelt. Somebody will tell you, oh, hey, I require anybody that rides with me to put on a seatbelt. And what do? In absolute defiance, was going to put it on. Know that you ride with it on. But because they told you to put it on, you leave it off. Or you put it on, but you don't lock it. Or you put it, you know how it's supposed to go across you and people will like move it behind them. Just anything to feel like I've gotten some of my authority back. And it's really interesting how quickly this happens over the most minute of things. You will be getting ready, and Someone will say to you, "Oh, hey, we need to leave in 5 minutes." You would have been ready in 5 minutes. But because they said 5 minutes, then in your head, you start getting irritated. Sometimes you get anxiety, panic even. Like, oh, I got to hurry up. Which, if you know, whenever you feel anxious and panicked, well, it takes you longer to do things. But then I start, the negative thoughts like, well, like I know how to be on time. I don't need your. So it is so quick that oftentimes we don't even realize what we're doing. But in these spaces of these negative thoughts, often that aren't accurate, because what are they based on? They are based on perceptions. I am perceiving something over this situation that may not even, in fact, be accurate. I may be thinking you're trying to control me. I may be thinking again, you're trying to make me feel stupid. You want to have authority and power over me. You want to belittle me. You want to demean me. When in fact, none of those things are true. You just simply gave me a reminder. No different than when I put one on my phone to let me know, hey, you need to be out of here in 5 minutes, because it's accountability, something that we utilize often when we're trying to make sure that we engage in a particular behavior. But when we feel like we're free to decide for ourselves, when we feel like it's good for ourselves, like, oh, I can put this reminder in place because I have decided to do it. Sometimes we feel like a person is like kind of digging, right? Like they're exposing that vulnerable part of us, and it is in that vulnerability that we're reacting to, and it is our own beliefs about ourselves that we're projecting onto this other person, to the point of almost us being paranoid. So we might, for example, um, someone say, "Oh, you look pretty today." Oh, today. So what, I didn't look pretty the other day? Or if I give someone else a compliment, it's like, "Oh, you don't think I'm pretty?" Right? You don't think I do a good job at that? So because this is a wound I have, the same thing happens in the case of people telling us what to do. If I have a wound in an area, I don't feel like I'm good enough. I don't feel like I'm worthy enough. I feel like people aren't going to choose me. I'm damaged. I'm broken. So when someone makes a comment to me where they're telling me what to do, they're making a command, if you will, then I feel like, oh, you're saying it too. So, oh, we need to leave in 5 minutes. We're going to be late. So you're telling me nobody will deal with me because I'm too much because I can't get anywhere on time. And you all are probably laughing like, okay, that seems like a bit of an over exaggeration, but that's what happens when we're being reactive, right? When we are in this place of struggling emotionally, or we are feeling like we're losing something, or we are feeling as if a person sees us in this negative space, and so they're trying to one up us, if you will. Like, oh, you're just trying to show people that you're better than me, right? So that competition element can come in with it when somebody gives you a directive, a command. You're like, oh, so you just did that to embarrass me, or oh, you just did that because you want people to look at you, and see you as not having the issues that I have. So what do we do with that? I know it feels like, goodness, that's a lot. But if you sometimes take the time to unpack, like, why you got irritated, and you process, you'll recognize that one or more of these things might be what's underneath you being reactive. So that's step one, right? So how do we stop this from being a sabotage behavior, where I'm interfering in my own life with people, uh, mind you, those I told to hold me accountable to making these changes, or people that love and care about me and want me to be healthy and well, or people that want me to be able to advance, and or people that just want to hold me accountable to things that I should be responsible for as a component of whatever it is, this committee I'm working for, this position I'm in. So one is to be aware of your reaction. So, I've talked to you all a good bit about slowing down and stopping the automatic process that happens when we get upset and then we react. So if you are able to recognize, like, oh, hey, like I'm gritting my teeth. I might have cut you a look. I might have rolled my eyes. I might have turned the water off very abruptly. I might have responded back in a flippant way. Let me pause and really explore what is the thought that I had that went along with that feeling, right? Because they go together. Sometimes we'll feel it before we recognize what the thought is, but they're there together. Am I responding physically? Am I responding emotionally? Am I being overly reactive and adding things to what you said that you did not say? Right? Because we can ruminate and we can obsess and we can think a lot of things in our head. And just because we think them doesn't mean it is true. And so now I have to kind of check myself about how much of that was you and how much of that was me. I think it's also important for us to just know what our wounds are. Sometimes it is ego, and I am struggling with wanting to be enough and wanting to be in charge and wanting to be right. And I will protect that at all costs, right? And so you saying anything to me, any feedback, any what I perceive to be a command is a threat to that. And if that's the case, then I'm going to have to check my ego. Why is it that when people give me feedback, why is it that when people tell me to do something, do I automatically go to that place of thinking I need to get into a battle with them? When have I felt powerless in my life and why? And why do I feel powerless with this particular person? So once you kind of do that exploration, you'll be able to understand, how am I looking at this situation? Because how I'm looking at it, of course, is going to affect how I respond to it. Being able to have some empathy and compassion, self compassion, but also compassion for other people. No provider wants to ruin your day. No provider wants to make you feel less than or inadequate. However, it is the job of your provider to point out when there are things going on that can negatively impact your health and your wellness. And so, am I upset with them or am I upset with myself? And if I'm upset with myself, let's talk about it, right? Because some of this battle I may be willingly entering into that I don't have to. Let's talk about some options. It's okay to acknowledge I feel overwhelmed and that it's tough for me. It doesn't mean I'm less than or inadequate. It does mean I'm human. And so being able to normalize that you're not going to be great at everything. Sometimes you are going to be lost, literally and figuratively, and going to need some assistance to figure out how to get back on track. And it's in that support that you'll be able to more often reach those goals because you're getting the assistance that you need in order for you to be able to be successful. I think it's also important for us to recognize that we make a lot of assumptions. Why automatically am I going to a place of feeling like this person is intentionally trying to control me or disempower me or treat me like a kid? Again, just because I think it doesn't mean it's true. And so, as I'm recognizing, like, okay, hey, that part is me, this is actually what they said. And I literally listen to what they said. Some of us read into things a lot. And I know women, we are primarily, um, you know, non-direct communicators, and not non-direct in that we can't be direct, but that we read a lot of behavioral cues, um, tone, posture, intonation, all of these things into when a person is saying something to us. And people in general that tend to ruminate over conversations and tend to be anxious in social interactions or tend to feel disempowered or have a history of trauma. Like, you're going to think a lot about the words that people say sometimes, and that sometimes is a trauma reaction. And so we'll play it over and over and over again in our heads. And so a person is saying something to us in a completely different conversation, may not even be related to some of the things we have in our head, but now I'm attaching those together. And I'm assuming that you're coming from the same place that maybe other people have in my life. I am trying to read your mind, if you will. Like, I know what you were thinking, but do I though? Do I know what you were thinking? Or did you say something and I misinterpreted what you said because of what I was thinking? And so it's important for us to be able to really look at what's driving where these thoughts are coming from. Do they even have anything to do with this person that I'm talking to? Or do they have to do with something else? And I realize that in our lives, like we definitely struggle with rejection, and we often interpret things from that place of rejection. And so when we're in that rejection sensitivity space, which we have talked about before, like that feeds into how I respond, how I interpret your behavior. And so, if I'm in that space of feeling rejected, like what do we want when we feel rejected? We want that reassurance. So, like, I'm looking to reassure myself, even if it's going to be in destructive ways. Like, I ain't got a problem with that, or it's fine, or y'all tripping, or you make a big deal out of everything. It's not right, because what that's the cognitive dissonance piece, right? So I now have to try to get my behaviors to align with my thoughts. So I have to see myself in a different way. I have to interpret these behaviors of mine in a different way so that they won't feed into that I feel like I'm being rejected, or I feel like I'm being called out, or worthless or inadequate, or whatever the case may be, that tapped into whatever that wound is. And I think it's also really important for us, and here's your plug for therapy. I think it's really important for us to recognize that oftentimes we are not healed from whatever, right? Like, you may be still dealing with something that happened in your family when you were younger. You may be still dealing with the remnants of being made to do something when you were younger. A lot of us grew up in households where, as long as you stay under this roof, insert whatever here, right? It might have been, you got to go to church, you got to make up your bed, you got these dishes have to be washed before you go to bed, you have to be working, you got to pay a bill, whatever the case may be. And so we then go to that space of whatever that wound is. Now I'm doing self sabotage behaviors around that to be able to get that power back that I didn't feel like I had, this resentment that I'm still carrying around. And so I will not go to church because I had to go to church, even though it may be that there's a piece of me that's missing a connection and I don't really know what it is, but I'm not going to go to church because you told me to, right? And so I tell myself, like, no, y'all are a bunch of hypocrites, and all you do is try to shame people, and you're about money and all of these things, right? And so we will then create scenarios in our head to reinforce some of these resistance behaviors, in order for us to be able to continue to justify, if you will, while we're engaging in these self destructive behaviors. So I encourage you, if you are a person who consistently feels that tug when someone tells you what to do, to really do some of that good work in therapy to understand, like, what is it that I may be receiving in these moments that may not be accurate, may be based on something that happened previously that I haven't worked through, that's interfering with me being able to be the healthiest version of myself. Now, I know sometimes we don't like people telling us what to do, but we go ahead and do it. And you all are saying, "Well, I do it, so it doesn't matter." But if it's giving that resentment in you, or if it's causing you to have an adverse reaction, then I would still encourage you to really explore what that's about. Because if I know somebody is doing something for my best interest, if I know they're holding me accountable to something that I told them that they wanted, if I know that someone is ensuring that we're in a preventative space and that this doesn't end up becoming something that has significant negative consequences for me, then why am I reacting with anger or irritability, or feeling anxious or overwhelmed or dismissed or rejected, or as if someone is trying to tell me that I'm less than and I'm not enough? So I encourage you, if you are struggling, to take this opportunity in this new year to address that and think about some different ways to be able to look at situations as helpful, as encouraging, as supportive, as investing in you, as honoring you, and as wanting you to be the best version of yourself that you can be. All right. Y'all be well.